our next chapter is actually over nutrition. We've talked a lot of this semester about exercise and this body composition, and so we do want to throw in this other component of nutrition. Realize when it comes to nutrition, this conversation, we're not going to be talking as much about things that you guys probably have already talked a lot about measuring out, like how many servings of fruit and vegetables you need per day and what do those look like. We'll talk a little bit about it, but we more want to talk about like what's needed in your nutrition, like what are the different components and things to consider, and how does that affect our lives? Like how do we integrate that in, and different things to look at, and then just give you some basic information, some practical ways in your everyday life that you can do these work in healthier nutritional habits, where it's not just this over concern about every bit of food that we put in our body and measuring everything. So with nutrition, one of the first things that we actually will look at is, we'll talk about nutrition from this perspective of, in our nutrition, we have what we call essential nutrients. There are lots and lots of things that we eat there are a lot of things that we eat that we don't necessarily have to eat. But when it comes to our essential nutrients, these are the things that we must consume in order for our bodies to function properly, and for us not to have any kind of adverse health effects from that. So our essential nutrients are the nutrients we must have in order to be able to live and function properly. Well, there are lots of other things that we may consume that aren't essential, meaning that we don't have to have them. They may be good for us, they may be bad for us, they may not have any effect, but we don't have to have them. And so when we look at our essential nutrients, we break those up into two different categories. We have our macronutrients and we have our micronutrients. What do you think the difference between a macronutrient and a micronutrient are?
I would assume macronutrients are bigger in some form. So do they provide like more nutrients for your body, or are they used for more, or something like that?
Macros like carbs, fats, and protein.
Yeah. So, Greg, you were saying that macronutrients would be like carbs and fats. Yeah, that's an example. And so, typically, when we're looking at macro versus micro, it's not about the size of them themselves. It's really about how much we need to consume each day. So, macronutrients, we need to consume more of those each day than what we do of our micronutrients. So, things like fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, we talk about how many grams we need to consume per day. Where micronutrients, we talk about how many milligrams or less we need to consume each day. So it's really about how much consumption there is. When it comes to our macronutrients, there are actually only three. The three macronutrients that we'll talk about, and the only three that you have, are fat, protein, and carbohydrate. The macronutrients we have are really special as well because they actually provide us with energy. So the only three things that we eat in our bodies that provide us energy are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And the way we measure how much energy they provide is through what we call a kilocalorie, okay? Or when you see the word calorie in packaging, like on the back of a nutritional label, that is the same thing as well. So a calorie with a capital C that you see on packaging and a kilocalorie, same exact thing. Your book sometimes will flip-flop between the word calorie and kilocalorie. And so in our textbook, those mean the exact same thing. If you go on to study nutrition in depth through your schooling, you'll learn that there are some differences between calorie, kilocalorie, large capital calorie, lowercase. But you don't need to know that now. Just anytime you see the word kilocalorie or calorie, exactly the same. And it is simply how much energy there is in our food. And the way they look at that is how many degrees could it raise a certain amount of water is how that's measured. But you guys don't have to necessarily know that right offhand. When it comes to it, realize when we talk about fat, there are 9 calories per gram of fat. So what that means is if you took a gram of butter, so you took straight lard from animal fat that's 100% fat, if you ate 1 gram of that fat, like measured it out on a scale, you ate that, that's exactly 9 calories. And so this is useful because we can start to see if we can figure out how much fat's in a food. If we look at a packaging that says it has 10 grams of fat in it, we know we're getting 90 calories from that fat in that food. And so fat has a lot of energy in it. Fat is is a huge source of energy when it comes to our nutrition. When we talk about proteins are only 4 calories per gram. So what we're saying here is if you take a piece of steak and you cut out just 1 gram of pure protein from that steak and you eat it, well, that's going to be 4 calories for that 1 gram of protein. And so we can see that there's less than half the amount of calories in a gram of protein as compared to a gram of fat. And then when it comes to carbohydrates, they're the same as proteins. There are 4 calories per gram. So if you weighed out a gram of sugar, literally a gram of sugar, and you ate that, you got exactly 4 calories. And so based on this information that we see, we can start to calculate how much energy is in our foods and how much energy we're getting from certain things. And it shows us why fats can be good for us and dangerous at the same time because of how many calories they have per gram. I do have one other thing on this calories list, and that is alcohol. Alcohol does have calories built into it. They're called alcoholic sugars, but they don't process the same in the body. So if you were to consume 1 gram of pure alcohol, okay, so not like a gram of like your tequila that you're going to drink or a gram of your beer, but we're talking about 100% pure alcohol. For every gram of alcohol that you consume, there's 7 calories per gram. And so there are calories that come from alcohol, but they don't process in the body the same. That they do cause some things with that, but you can't use it as a replacement. You can't say, oh, well, I didn't eat today, so I'm going to drink alcohol in order to get the calories I need for the day. They're not going to process in the body the same, and they're not going to do what you're hoping. So you can't say like, my professor, J-Ho, he said that, I didn't, that alcohol has calories, and so I'm just going to drink today to get all the calories I need. No, that's not good for your body, and you definitely don't want to do that particular thing. So just kind of keep those in mind that alcohol does have calories in it. And so when people start drinking more, typically in college, they start to see some weight gain because of this, but they're not replaceable calories. They don't take the place of others. And so we've got a lot of that going on. Realize that when it comes to our nutrition, the way we get this in is through our digestive system. This helps to break down our foods and allows us to be able to absorb these in so that we can use them for energy and use them for our nutrients and other things besides the energy themselves. So what are all the different parts of our digestive system? Do you guys know?
Like the stomach, the large and small intestines, and some others, but those are the 3 that come to mind.
Yeah, so we've got our stomach, our small intestine, our large intestines. You can't forget about how our food actually gets to our stomach. Right? So we've got things like our esophagus. Do you guys think the mouth is part of the digestive system?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is your mouth part of your digestive system?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're breaking food down mechanically, like literally chewing it and breaking it down mechanically. Also, your saliva is breaking down your food. If you were to take a piece of like bread that is kind of like not very sweet, so think about kind of like a bread that you could take where when you eat it, you're kind of like, it's not the sweetest bread in the world. If you take that bread and just let it sit in your mouth, so kind of put it in your cheek to the side and just let it sit there and soak in saliva, what you'll notice is after a couple of minutes that bread starts to taste a whole lot sweeter. And that's because your saliva actually starts to break it down and into a more simple form, and you start to taste those sugars a little bit easier. So your saliva breaks it down. Your liver is part of your digestive system. It's when your nutrients into your bloodstream in your intestines, it goes to the liver first for processing and to make sure it goes in the right place and kind of helps with that. And so is your pancreas. Your pancreas is part of your digestive system in the fact that it releases a bunch of chemicals straight into your small intestines to break things down like fats and proteins. And so there are